What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video. And this one I want to talk about what's going on with Tesla, SPY, Nvda, and the QQQ and break down some other tickers out there. I want to talk about what's going on with the market so far and some very important levels to be watching for, and what's going on with the charts thus far. But before I begin things up all this information, let me just mention a couple of things. Firstly, I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo, the link down below, and deposit $100 into the account, you are guaranteed up to 5 free stocks. If you deposit $1,000, you're guaranteed up to 15 free stocks, and software ends very, very soon. Anyways, now let's break down what's going on with the market. Looking at Tesla, this thing is still looking relatively weak as we have a nice downtrend that's continuing to develop. But the question is, can Tesla try to hold above this 217.5 area, or are we going to lose this to turn more bearish? The reason why 217.5, that zone, is so important is because that's where the weekly 200 moving average happens to be. If Tesla does end up losing this, we're going to be expecting a bigger drop towards this 215 area. If Tesla manages to hold above this support right here and we try bouncing just temporarily, it could try to get back to 222.5, but nothing really matters unless we close above 225 because we made an attempt to break that level and we failed. And we could still be on a downtrend if we keep rejecting below 225. So to really change that, to show some strength, to show signs of a bounce, we need to see Tesla try to break above 225 and close above there as well. Now, I just want to mention that when it comes to Tesla, I'm going to zoom out using Weeble for this part. The weekly looks bearish. Okay, this weekly chart looks pretty bearish so far, so it does favor the bears a bit more. Same thing with the daily, it's favoring the bears. So because the bears are kind of like being favored right now because the bears have the edge, in essence, that's very important to note. And I just believe it's very important for us to kind of like go over these details. But the thing about that is, as Tesla is starting to sell off more, this is going to affect the views and the sentiments of different investors. You might see a lot of FUD coming out, all this bad news. Like I said in my previous video, I just see this as nothing more than a buying opportunity. Anyways, but although Tesla's looking kind of bearish, I called out some important levels. I also want to talk about SPY in the same manner. SPY is still holding up, guys. It's still holding up nicely on the weekly. It's actually up for the week. Not looking bad whatsoever, but we're going to be very careful at these levels because the problem with SPY is this. If I just like zoom out, I don't think I need to zoom out here. If anything, I just want to be like, I'm going to use the weekly and zoom out from there. Historically, between 478 and 480 is where we have SPY's all-time high. At least that's when you use an unadjusted chart. So I could actually change this to back to an adjusted style. But basically, we're approaching the all-time high on SPY. But the last time it reached that level, we got a big rejection. So you want to be very careful at 480. That's going to be very important. So we'll be watching that as time goes on. But at the same time, as we're trying to pump higher and higher and higher, uh, I think that it's very important for us to look at SPY and be very careful and very cautious at that level up above. So the chart kind of looks like this. You could even adjust this a little bit. Doesn't really matter. It depends on if we try to break above this yellow trend line or not. But if SPY loses 474, we could see this thing start sinking back down to these lower levels. So first there's 475, then there's 474. If we lose that, that's when you could turn a bit more bearish. If we close below that, there's going to be some more of an edge for the bears. If we manage to get above 477, because we're kind of sinking during the after hours, if we try to break above 477, watch 478 as critical resistance. That's a very, very tough resistance. Every time we try to go there, it's not looking as great for it. It tends to get rejected, but there could be an attempt to fight it. If it breaks above 478 and closes there, we're going to be bullish. Our next target is going to be 480, but you want to be careful here because the resistance is going to be very tight, especially as we approach the all-time high. So what does this look like? In my opinion, it's actually very stationary. See, it's been going back and forth for the last few days, been stuck in this range between 478 to about 475, back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. So we'll be watching to see which way it breaks. We're kind of stuck for now. We'll be watching that very, very carefully. But I just want to note we have important levels to watch, and I'll be paying very close attention to that as time goes on. Right now, SPY is indecisive, so we just have to wait and see which way it breaks and what news comes out. For Nvda, I know a lot of people are interested in Nvda. We're forming a very, very nice looking pennant right now. So basically, Nvidia is very tight. It's about to make a big move. You have to see which way it breaks to determine direction. It's super, super tight. It's just range bound. If we get a bullish breakout, you want to see it break 552. If that breaks, look for a push for 555 and plus. If we're bearish, you want to see it basically lose 542 and start breaking down to about basically the 530s. Right now, I can't make any promises yet. I need to see which way it breaks first on the pennant. I think that's the best thing to do. So just keep this in your mind. Watch it get tight, and then we'll see how it goes from there. But there is a concern I do have about Nvidia, and that's the fact that it's pumped like crazy without much of a pullback. So generally, when stocks become this overbought, we sometimes tend to see some sellers kind of defend them, kind of step in. So we're kind of overbought on the 4-hour time frame. We're starting to get a bearish crossover on the PPO. So you want to be a little bit careful. It could retrace a bit, at least to 537, technically speaking, but no guarantees yet unless we break 542. So watch that level very closely, very carefully. That's it for SPY and NVIDIA. For Apple, it's the same thing all over again. Excuse me, guys. It's the same thing again. Apple's been kind of boring. The reason I say that is because it's trying to form an uptrend here, but you could also argue it has like a head and shoulders. So it's very ambiguous. You could say that we have like a head and shoulders forming on Apple. It's about to like collapse. You could also argue the opposite, that it's holding up nicely. The best thing to do is just watch this tightening of this resistance right here. We can draw it out kind of like this. And then we'll see which way it breaks, basically. We'll see which way this thing attempts to break. In my opinion, I can actually redraw this kind of like this. It doesn't really matter, but the point I'm trying to make is it's getting very tight, and we'll just have to see which way it goes. Basically, Apple's getting very tight. If we're bullish, you want to see it basically break out towards 188. If it does so, it could remain bullish. If we're bearish, you want to see it basically lose 183.5. If it does so, it's going to start sinking to much lower levels. As of right now, it's kind of stuck. It's getting tighter and tighter and tighter. But we'll just watch and see which way this thing ends up breaking, at least for the time being. I do want to note that there is a risk to Apple because of this head and shoulders. So there is going to be a risk of some downside, but just to be safe, I want to watch and see if we get a slanted head and shoulders break to the downside. One could also interpret this as a rising wedge. So you could argue that like we have this like not the Fibonacci. Sorry guys, my line is supposed to be right here. You could also argue that we have this like wedge forming where it's just like slowly climbing. So there's a lot that could be said about this if it is technically going to uptrend like this before we get a break to the downside. So I'll be watching this just to be safe. We'll see if this is forming a wedge or not. And honestly, guys, I hate to say this, but the truth is, you got to be patient. That's just a joke, by the way. I'm always patient. I love being patient, but you got to be patient. I know you guys want me to predict everything, tell me what's going to happen. At this point, we have potential setups that are indecisive, and we just have to wait and see. Finally, for the QQQ, I mean, the problem with the QQQ is we're approaching some tight resistance. You could argue we have a wedge that's forming again on the QQQ. Uh, so we'll see if this wedge ends up forming or not. This could be a slanted head and shoulders. I'm not really counting on that. We have resistance at 410 and also 412. We have support currently at 408, then 405.7, followed by 404. Uh, if we're bearish, you want to see this thing basically lose this support. It's actually very tight right now. If we're bullish, you want to see it break out. I'm going to be very patient. I'll be waiting. I just have to wait how things are looking. And then with that being said, just thank you all so much for listening. So with that being said, please have a great day. Please remain calm, cool, and collected. I want to just keep this video short. Make sure you watch your levels and we'll just see how it goes. Until then, have a great day. Thank you and peace out.